Under the scorching midday sun in New Mexico, I had just stepped out of the mobile clinic when my phone rang, drilling straight into my temple. I wiped the sweat off my brow with the sleeve of my white blouse, feeling the sting of salty drops sliding down my cheeks. The phone buzzed again in my pocket, flashing a name I had silently hoped never to see again. Martin. My heart sank. Martin, my stepfather. A man whose presence always came with chaos and disorder. I almost declined the call. But a mix of curiosity and a faint hope that maybe, just maybe, he had changed made me tap accept. Rosalie. You finally picked up, he said with fake enthusiasm. Guess what exciting news I have for you? I squinted out toward the distant dry hills. Make it quick. I'm busy. I sold the cabin. Martin declared like he'd just won the lottery. I froze, my blood turning cold. You sold what? The mountain cabin, of course, he said casually, like he'd sold an old chair. No one's using it, so I closed the deal. Got a decent offer too. Covered most of my debts. It's like a blessing. I clenched the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. You had no right. That cabin is not yours to sell. Don't be so uptight, Rosie, he scoffed, voice thick with smugness. You're off gallivanting around the world helping strangers while I'm left to handle everything at home. I figured it was time someone made a decision. It's not like anyone's been there recently. I took a deep breath, but fury flared like wildfire deep in my gut. You know full well that cabin was left to me by my mother. That piece of property was for the family, right? Martin cut in. I'm family too, remember? For some reason in that moment everything around me, buzzing cicadas, a distant truck rumbling down the dusty road, faded into silence. All I could hear was Martin's smug, grating laugh echoing in my mind. You sold the place where I grew up, I whispered, my voice shaking not from weakness but from holding back the storm in my chest. Where Mom and I picked wild blueberries behind the house. Where I used to sit on the porch while she told stories during the rain. Oh, come on, Rosalie, he snapped. It's just some planks of wood in the forest. Don't be so dramatic. I hung up. No more words. If I'd heard one more sentence from him, I might have screamed under that sweltering sun. My hands still trembling, I stared at the dark phone screen. It felt like the sky had collapsed. That cabin wasn't just a building. It was a memory, a sanctuary for the weary, the one place that still felt like home after Mom passed. And he sold it. No warning. No permission. Not even a courtesy call. Just because of gambling debts? I wondered how far Martin had sunk. More importantly, who did he think I was that I'd just accept this? Well, if he thought I'd stay quiet while he did this, then Martin had picked the wrong person to mess with. I stood still in the narrow shade of the clinic's overhang, but inside me a storm was rising. Images long buried came rushing back like a film in reverse. Me, a giggling child in a hammock between two tall pines near the cabin. Mom cooking her signature stew in the tiny wood-paneled kitchen, the smell filling the entire hill. And every evening as the sun dipped behind the ridges, she'd pull me onto the porch, knitting while sharing stories from her own childhood, right here. That cabin wasn't just a house. It was the last living piece of my mother after she passed from cancer when I was 26. Every beam, every window frame held a piece of her. Martin had no memory there. He came into the picture when I was 24. He didn't spend a single dime fixing up the place, nor did he understand how much it meant to me. I didn't visit often, true. My work as a volunteer physician had taken me all over, from remote corners of Appalachia to deep into Guatemala. But that cabin was always where I returned when my mind needed rest, when the world felt too loud. What Martin didn't know, or perhaps conveniently forgot, was that the cabin wasn't entirely mine. 4 years ago, I signed a co-ownership agreement with my best friend, Emily Stanton, now an art teacher at a high school in Colorado Springs. After Mom passed, I didn't want the cabin to someday become a burden. So Emily, who also saw the place as a second home, and I made it legally ours together. I still remember the day we signed the papers at a lawyer's office in Santa Fe. Emily joked, "If you ever lose your mind from overworking, I'll still have the cabin safe for both of us." I never thought that moment would become so real, not because I lost my mind but because I was betrayed. I scrambled to pull out my phone, my fingers trembling as I dialed Emily's number. Rosie. Her voice was soft, a little surprised. I thought you were still down in southern Arizona? Emily. Martin just called. He said he sold the cabin to pay off gambling debts. I tried to stay calm, but my throat tightened. What? Her tone shifted instantly. Has he lost his mind? That cabin has a co-ownership contract. He can't sell it without my signature. Exactly. But he thinks he can outsmart everyone. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Rosie, listen. I still have the original contract. And not just that. There's a clause that clearly states any transaction without mutual agreement is not legally valid. I nodded, feeling a slight sense of relief. I need your help. Right now. I'm cutting my volunteer trip short and coming back in a few days. In the meantime, can you check the county property records? I want to know who he sold it to and how. Got it. I'll handle it, Emily replied firmly. If Martin thinks he can turn your mom's cabin into a pawn to settle some shady debts, he has no idea who he's messing with. When the call ended, I stared out at the distant ridgelines where the cabin sat nestled among towering pines. Under the harsh sun, one thing was clear. Martin might still see me as the naive girl he could manipulate, but he was wrong. Very wrong. I had grown up. I had learned how to stand up for the things I valued. And this time I would fight. That afternoon I could barely focus on my shift at the clinic. My mind kept spinning with worst-case scenarios. Martin, somehow, believed he could fool the law and manipulate my emotions. But he had picked the wrong person to deceive. That evening I called Emily again. She had just finished teaching. Background noise of chattering students still echoed in the hallway. When I told her I had arranged to finish my assignment early and would be back in Colorado within 2 days, she immediately switched into legal warrior mode. Don't worry. I already called the land office in Jefferson County, Emily said, her voice calm but edged with cold resolve. There's no official transfer recorded. But I did find something suspicious. I sat up straight on the spare bed in my rented room. What is it? A provisional file was created 5 days ago. Seller, Martin Douglas. Buyer, a third party named Harvey Bell. But it hasn't been approved yet. Harvey Bell. The name didn't ring a bell, but my gut told me this wasn't some random transaction. Can you dig deeper? I asked. Already did, Emily said quickly. Harvey Bell owns a chain of old roadside motels. Recently got tangled in a lawsuit over shady contract terms. I'm guessing this is a stunt, like a fake transfer to launder assets. I let out a shaky breath. Martin wasn't just reckless, he was sneaky. Emily continued, I asked a friend, he's a real estate lawyer, to review our co-ownership contract thoroughly. He confirmed, any transaction lacking both signatures is invalid. No exceptions. So the cabin is still legally ours. Legally, 100%. A wave of relief washed over me. But I knew the game wasn't over. Martin likely didn't know the deal hadn't gone through, and there was no way he'd stop here. We need to act fast, I said. Agreed, Emily replied. I'm drafting a letter to cease all transfer activity, sending it directly to Martin and the land office. If needed, we'll include proof and cite the applicable co-ownership laws. I nodded, a fierce sense of resolve building inside me. And if he keeps pushing? Then we send an official cease and desist letter. And if it comes to it, we take him to court, Emily said, unwavering. This isn't just about the cabin. This is about justice. That night, I received an email from Emily. It included a scan of the original contract, the clause prohibiting unilateral transfers, and a draft letter ready to go out the next morning. She also attached the name and phone number of the attorney who'd represent us if things escalated. I read every line slowly, my heart tightening when I saw my mother's faded signature in the corner, like a quiet witness still watching over me. Martin thought I was easy to manipulate? That I was still the girl who once avoided conflict and let things slide? Maybe once. But not anymore. My flight to Denver landed on a windy morning. As I stepped out of the terminal, I spotted Emily waiting by her old Jeep, still dust-covered from the high desert roads just like always. Let's go, she said as I tossed my luggage into the back of her car. We need to get to the land office before Martin causes more trouble. The entire drive we strategized like two seasoned attorneys. Not just to reclaim the cabin but to send a clear message to Martin, and anyone like him. Never underestimate women who know the law and stand for what's right. We stopped at a small coffee shop before entering the county office. As I unlocked my phone, a new message popped up from Martin. Rosalie, don't blow this out of proportion. It's done. You can't change anything. I glanced at Emily, then smiled coldly. He's about to find out just how wrong he is. I didn't need the coffee that morning. The surge of adrenaline rushing through me was more than enough to keep me wide awake all day. After submitting our cease transfer request at the Jefferson County Land Office, Emily and I drove straight to a small house on the outskirts of Boulder, where Martin now lived with a new poker buddy. I didn't call ahead. This time I wanted to look him in the eye and let him know, the game ends here. His dusty pickup truck was parked right in front, the hood coated in grime. As soon as I stepped out of the car, he emerged from the back door, beer can in hand, looking like he had just rolled out of a midday nap. Rosalie, he drawled, smirking. I'm guessing you didn't drop by to throw a birthday party, huh? I didn't answer. I walked straight toward him, my face unreadable. We need to talk. Now. Martin shrugged, stepping aside like it was all nothing. Fine. But before you blow up, just remember, I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I stopped in the middle of his cluttered living room, littered with pizza boxes and cigarette butts. Sadly, this was his world, chaotic, careless, and full of excuses. I just came from the land office, I began, eyes locked on his. I saw the transfer file for the cabin. And I stopped the deal. Martin choked on his beer. Wait, what did you do? I sent a legal request to freeze all transactions involving the cabin. If you keep pushing, I'll take this to court. Martin squinted. You're overreacting, Rosalie. It was just an advance, a temporary loan. I was gonna pay it back after my next big win. Temporary loan? I scoffed. You sold a property that doesn't belong to you without consulting your co-owner, without permission, and now you're calling it a loan? Do you even hear yourself? He ran his fingers through his hair, his tone shifting to anger. What do you even know? You're always off saving strangers while I'm stuck here dealing with what's left. I let out a bitter laugh. You deal with things by pawning off the only thing my mother left behind? And you think I'll just stay quiet like before? Martin fell silent. I stepped closer, voice low and firm. That cabin isn't just a house. It's where I grew up. It's where my mother left her final memories. And legally, I don't own it alone. Emily does too. Any action you take without both our signatures is legally worthless. And worse, it's criminal if done intentionally. He backed up half a step. For a moment, I saw panic flicker across the face that once radiated arrogance. You wouldn't really sue, would you? He tried. I mean, I'm still your stepfather. I cut him off. You crossed the line. And if you think that title earns you forgiveness after what you pulled, then you never knew me at all. The air in the room grew thick. He opened his mouth to respond, then stopped. Finally, he snapped, do whatever you want. But don't be surprised when I fight back. I didn't move. I'm not afraid of a fight. And this time I'm not alone. I turned and walked out, not waiting for another empty threat. As the door shut behind me, I felt like I had closed a chapter of my life. Martin may have forced his way into my story over a decade ago. But from here on out, he would no longer control a single page. The next morning, Emily and I sat at her kitchen table, soft sunlight filtering through linen curtains, illuminating the open laptop screen with the drafted legal letter. She took a breath, then said, I've sent the cease and desist to both Martin and Harvey Bell's office, by email and certified mail. If they try anything else with the cabin, we've got grounds to sue. I nodded, still not fully at ease. I want to make sure there are zero loopholes. I'll call the real estate agent directly. Her name's Jill Monroe. She's listed on the provisional file in Jefferson County. Emily nodded. Record it if you can. I dialed the number and put the phone on speaker. After a few rings, a professional female voice answered. Hello, this is Jill Monroe with Pinecrest Realty. How can I assist you today? Hi, Miss Monroe. This is Rosalie Garrett. I'd like to ask about a recent transaction involving a cabin at 427 Blackbird Ridge. There was a brief pause before she responded. Yes. Remember. Martin Douglas was listed as the seller, correct? That's right. But the cabin is jointly owned and he had no right to sign anything alone. Can you confirm, did he sign the sale agreement by himself? Jill's voice clearly hesitated. I sincerely apologize. I only received one signature, Mr. Douglas's. He claimed to be the sole owner. But something felt a little off, so I flagged the file for further verification. The sale hasn't gone through yet. I glanced at Emily, my heart racing. Miss Monroe, I have all the documents proving that the cabin is co-owned by me and another party, Emily Stanton. Under Colorado state law, any transaction without both parties' consent is invalid. Jill's tone immediately shifted to serious. I completely understand. Could you send me a copy of the co-ownership agreement? If so, I'll officially suspend the transaction and include a legal explanation in the file. Thank you. I'll send it right away. After hanging up, I turned to Emily. She's not the bad guy. Martin must have misled even the agent. Which proves we need to keep every shred of evidence, Emily said, opening her laptop. I'll create a shared folder. We'll include the co-ownership contract, the cease and desist letter to Martin, receipts from Jefferson County, and today's call recording. We worked through the entire morning. I printed out all our emails, screenshot Martin's text messages, and even pulled out the old box where my mom had kept handwritten notes about the cabin. Some pages still carried a faint scent of cinnamon spray she used all over the house. The emotions welled up, but I blinked back the tears and stayed focused. By the afternoon, an email from Jill Monroe came through. Rosalie, I've received your documents. The transaction has now been officially suspended. I will also contact the buyer to explain the co-ownership issue and potential legal risks. Thank you for stopping this in time. I exhaled, but before I could relax, my phone buzzed again. Martin. I looked at Emily and put the phone on speaker. Rosalie. His voice came through, no longer smug, just irritated. What the hell did you do? They just called me, the deal's off. Are you trying to ruin my life? I stayed calm. I'm protecting what's mine. You had no right to sell that cabin. You know what I'm dealing with, he barked. I need the money. I've got collectors breathing down my neck. You think life's been easy for me? I didn't respond right away. Then I said, and you think I'm still someone you can manipulate? I gave you a chance to be decent. But you chose to steal and call it a solution. Don't expect me to turn a blind eye. He was silent for a few seconds, then muttered, Watch yourself, Rosalie. Some things are out of your control. I stared straight at the speaker. I'm not trying to control anyone. I'm just not letting anyone mess with my life again. When the call ended, Emily said quietly, He knows he's out of moves. I wasn't completely sure, but I knew one thing for certain. Martin had bet on the wrong hand this time. 3 days after that heated confrontation with Martin, I got a call from an unfamiliar number, area code Jefferson County. My instincts kicked in instantly. This was a turning point. Hello, this is Detective Thomas Miller from the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office. A deep male voice said, polite but firm. I'm currently investigating a property dispute that includes your name in the file. Can you confirm that you're Rosalie Garrett? I sat upright. Yes, I'm Rosalie. This is about the cabin on Blackbird Ridge, right? That's correct. We've received documentation from the office of attorney Emily Stanton, along with related materials suggesting possible real estate fraud. I've reviewed the co-ownership contract, the audio recording with agent Jill Monroe, and the cease and desist notice. My heart pounded as I listened closely. Detective Miller continued. Based on the documents you've provided and the agent's statement, we have sufficient grounds to open a criminal investigation against Mr. Martin Douglas. The preliminary charges include property fraud and knowingly executing an unauthorized transaction. I froze for a few seconds. So, what's the next step, sir? I asked. The question is, Rosalie, do you wish to formally press charges against Mr. Douglas? If so, we will proceed by contacting the district attorney's office, and the case will be submitted to the court for potential prosecution. I looked out the window. The tall pine trees swayed gently in the afternoon breeze. In that moment, memories flooded back. Me, a younger girl who once tolerated so much because I believed family meant enduring. I had compromised. I had stayed silent. But not anymore. I want to press charges, I said firmly. I want him held accountable for disrespecting the law and basic human decency. Crystal clear, Detective Miller replied. We'll issue a formal notice to Mr. Douglas, and summon him for questioning. If necessary, you may be called to testify in court. Are you ready for that? I answered without hesitation. I've been ready since the moment he signed that contract alone. News spread fast. 2 days later, I received a message from a distant relative I hadn't heard from in years. Heard Martin's under investigation. You holding up okay? No matter what, you did the right thing. I replied with one word: thanks. That evening, Emily showed up with a bottle of white wine and we sat on the back porch looking out toward the mountain range, where the cabin my mom and I once called home still stood steady and strong like the faith I was slowly reclaiming. You know, Emily said, swirling her wine, Martin may be a manipulative snake, but you're the one who made him play by the rules. I smiled, not out of joy but relief. I'm just protecting what I should have protected long ago. A little while later, I received an email from the detective's office. Rosalie, we have made contact with Mr. Douglas. He is cooperating, but denies knowing the cabin was jointly owned. However, the evidence in our possession is clear. We will continue to update you on the case status. I handed my phone to Emily. She raised an eyebrow. That whole I didn't know routine. Please. He really thinks he can dodge everything just by playing dumb? That's exactly why I filed charges, I replied. Not for revenge. To send a message to anyone who thinks they can ever manipulate me again. Before leaving, Emily placed a hand on my shoulder. No matter how the court rules, you've already won, because this time, you didn't stay silent. I watched her disappear behind the front door, then turned back to my desk. The sunset bathed the cabin deed in gold, where 2 signatures stood side by side like a declaration. This is a legacy, not a gamble. Martin might still have tricks up his sleeve. But so did I. 1 week after I signed the official complaint, the chain of events moved faster than I expected. On a breezy Tuesday morning, while I was sorting through old files in the storage shed, I got a call from Jill Monroe, the real estate agent. Rosalie, I thought you should know, she said, her voice firm yet relieved. The buyer, Harvey Bell, has withdrawn from the deal. I froze, my gloves still dusty. What did he say? As soon as he received notice from the DA's office that the cabin is jointly owned and under criminal investigation, Mr. Bell reached out to cancel the transaction. He also agreed to sign a waiver forfeiting his deposit, since there was no legal transfer. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. A weight lifted off my shoulders. Thank you, Jill. Because you kept everything transparent from the start, the cabin didn't end up in the wrong hands. Don't thank me, she replied. You're the one who protected what mattered. After the call, I immediately texted Emily. It's official. The cabin is still ours. Less than 10 minutes later, she was knocking on my door, holding 2 iced coffees and beaming like the sun after a storm. You did it, she whispered. No, we did it, I corrected her. We sat on the front steps with a view of the distant Rockies, where our cabin still waited, untouched and at peace as if it had never been placed on the bargaining table. 2 days later, I received an email from Detective Miller's office. Rosalie Garrett, we are writing to inform you that Mr. Martin Douglas has been officially indicted on 3 criminal charges: property fraud, falsification in real estate transactions, and conspiracy to appropriate property not under his legal ownership. The preliminary hearing will be held at the Jefferson County Court on the 15th of next month. Your presence is not required at this stage. I sat quietly for a moment before hitting reply. I understand. Thank you and your team for not letting this be forgotten. When I told Emily, she was silent for a while, then asked, Do you feel sad? Seeing things escalate this far? I thought for a few seconds. A little. But if we didn't have the law to lean on, people like Martin would keep doing this over and over again. This is the right choice. She nodded. And it made you stronger. Not because you won, but because you didn't stay silent. That night, I drove out to the cabin alone. It had been a long time since I'd returned here before dusk. The wooden gate still creaked a little as it opened, and the forest around still whispered like it was sharing an old secret. I stepped inside. The wooden floor was familiar. The scent of dried pine lingered in the air, and my mother's sweater still hung behind the door, like it had been waiting for someone to return. I turned on the light, warm glow spreading throughout the room. The cabin was still home. I pulled the old armchair close to the fireplace, sat down, and finally allowed myself a long, deep breath. No more Martin. No more looming threat. No more fear of being pushed out of the place I loved most. I had kept the cabin. But more importantly, I had kept the part of myself I thought I'd lost after years of bending and conceding. 2 weeks after the cabin was officially confirmed to belong to Emily and me, we returned, not with worry or dread, but with tools, paint brushes, and a plan for rebirth. Emily set a wooden ladder next to the window and laughed loudly. "We're about to turn this place into a little forest paradise." "Ready, Captain?" I raised an eyebrow. "As long as you're not putting me on the roof to shingle it, you can call me whatever you want." Summer was in full bloom in the Colorado mountains. Golden sunlight flooded the front yard. Butterflies drifted lazily between the wild lavender bushes my mom planted decades ago. Everything seemed to remind me, no matter what happens, nature always finds a way to heal. And now so did I. Emily and I split up the tasks. She took care of the back porch and repainted the faded wooden siding while I tackled the inside, wiping off layers of dust, replacing curtains, polishing the floors, and most importantly, keeping the old photo of my mother standing in front of the cabin, her gentle smile as if still watching over it all. Sometimes I sat quietly in the kitchen watching sunlight stream through the small square window. This kitchen had seen so many winters where my mom made her famous chicken soup, so many late-night talks when I had just graduated college and didn't know who I was yet. I used to think I was strongest when I silently endured pain. Now I realize silence didn't make me stronger. Choosing to protect what's right did. Even if it meant standing up to family. Martin had haunted my adult years. Not because he yelled, but because he controlled through guilt. He made me believe keeping peace was more important than speaking truth, that patience equaled love. But this cabin stands as living proof that setting boundaries is also love. Love for yourself. That evening we sat on the porch, feet propped up on the wooden bench, warm mugs of hot cocoa in hand. The cool night breeze rustled the leaves and crickets sang a quiet lullaby to our peace. "Did you ever think," Emily said, "that this cabin would end up saving us both?" I leaned back in my chair, eyes tracing the deep night sky. I used to think this place was just for hiding. But now I know, it's not a retreat. It's where everything begins again. Emily was quiet for a moment, then softly said, "You've changed a lot, Rosie." I looked at her. "I feel it too. I'm no longer the person who always ducks her head, always afraid of offending someone, always hoping others would change. Now I start by changing myself, by saying no when I need to and keeping what rightfully belongs to me." "Exactly," Emily smiled. "I'm proud of you." The next morning we brought out packets of wildflower seeds and began planting them around the edge of the cabin fence, the area Martin had once let go wild with weeds. I chose the flowers my mom loved most: purple coneflowers, golden buttercups, and a bit of lavender. "Each flower," I said as I scattered the seeds into the soil, "is a reminder. We don't stay down forever. We can rise again, stronger, brighter, and prouder than before." As we watered the freshly turned soil, I felt as though we were watering my own soul. Martin may never understand how much this cabin means to me. He might keep blaming others, denying responsibility, or rewriting his version of the story. But that doesn't matter anymore. Because now I don't need anyone's validation to know I'm doing the right thing. I sat on the cabin porch holding my mother's old book, a leather-bound volume of Emily Dickinson poems faded with time. The late afternoon light filtered through the leaves, casting soft golden patterns on the wooden floorboards. No more urgent calls. No more buzzing phones signaling another crisis. Just me in the peaceful place I reclaimed from someone unworthy of it. The next week I stayed at the cabin longer than planned. Not because I was escaping the world, but because I was reconnecting with it and with myself. I spent my mornings journaling, afternoons hiking the trail along the creek, and evenings sitting under the porch listening to the steady hum of insects playing lullabies for the soul. With each passing day, a layer of old pressure peeled away, revealing a simpler Rosalie, but truer than ever before. Then came an email from the international volunteer organization I used to work with. They asked if I'd be interested in rejoining a public health program in rural Montana this fall. I stared at the email for a long time, not out of hesitation but because for the first time in years I didn't feel like I was running from something. I was choosing on my own terms. I replied simply, "I'll join. But this time on my schedule." A few days later, Emily came by. We baked together, painted more flower pots, and hung a small wooden sign at the cabin's gate. A place for peace and for those who know how to keep it. Emily laughed when she read it. Sounds like the title of a best-selling novel. I winked. Who says I can't write one after all this? She tilted her head. You write the first draft, I'll be your editor. We both laughed. But deep down I knew, the most important story I'd just written was my own life. And this time I was the one holding the pen. No one else. Rosalie's story is a powerful reminder that standing up for your worth isn't selfish. It's self-respect. From someone who once kept quiet to avoid hurting others, she learned how to say no and stand up for what's right. In today's world where personal boundaries are often blurred by those closest to us, strength and legal knowledge don't just protect our property, they help us reclaim our identity. Sometimes freedom begins with the courage to confront. What do you think about Rosalie's journey and how she defended what was rightfully hers? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt stories and life lessons about family and resilience.